Echoes from the Golden Age tell us the most beloved cartoon dog in American history was originally named Too Much, played the bongos in a teenage rock band, and was deliberately designed to look like the worst possible version of his own breed. CBS rejected the show for being too frightening for children. Fred Jones was named after a real CBS executive. And stick around for number 1, because the name Scooby-Doo itself has two completely different origin stories, and one of them quietly undermines the other. Number 10. Before the Mystery Machine, there was a rock band. The original concept for this show had nothing to do with solving mysteries as a primary occupation. Writers Joe Ruby and Ken Spears pitched a show called Mysteries 5, a teenage rock band made up of 5 kids named Jeff, Mike, Kelly, Linda, and Linda's brother, W.W., who solved mysteries between gigs. Their dog, Too Much, was also a full band member. He played the bongos. The entire premise that eventually became a 50-year franchise began as a Scooby-Doo who played percussion in a band nobody has ever heard of. Number 9. The original dog was named Too Much, for very obvious reasons. Before Scooby-Doo existed, the show's canine mascot was called Too Much, a name chosen specifically because the production team was worried he would be too similar to the sheepdog Hot Dog from the Archie show. The name Too Much was meant to acknowledge they were pushing the boundaries of what a cartoon dog character could be. He played bongos. He spoke. He was, by any reasonable measure, a great deal. When the character was eventually redesigned and renamed, the bongo-playing version of Too Much was quietly retired without a single episode ever airing. Number 8. CBS rejected it for being too scary. Yes? Really. After Ruby and Spears revised the concept and Silverman retitled it Who's SS Scared?, it was presented to CBS network executives as the centerpiece of the 1969 to 1970 Saturday morning block. The executives rejected it on the spot. Their specific objection: the show was too frightening for young viewers. The show that spent 50 years reassuring children that every single monster was actually just a person in a rubber mask was originally considered too terrifying to broadcast. The network that greenlit the final version was the same one that had just rejected it for scaring children. Number 7. None of these characters were actually invented from scratch. When Ruby and Spears were developing the teenage characters, Fred Silverman insisted they be modeled on the cast of the early 1960s television series The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis. Writer Mark Evanier, who later wrote Scooby-Doo teleplays, identified each character directly. Fred was based on Dobie, Velma on Zelda, Daphne on Thalia, and Shaggy on Maynard. Not one of the 4 teenagers in Mystery, Inc. was built from an original concept. Every single one of them was a personality transplant from a show that had already been off the air for 6 years. Number 6. Shaggy and Velma were originally brother and sister. In the earliest development documents for the show, the characters eventually named Shaggy and Velma were written as siblings, W.W. and Linda, a brother and sister who traveled together with the rest of the group. This sibling relationship persisted deep into the development process, reportedly leaving traces even in the earliest storyboards for the first 3 produced episodes, before being quietly removed without explanation. 2 characters who spent 50 years as close friends sharing snacks and running from villains were originally designed to be each other's family. Before we keep going, quick question for you. Which member of the Mystery Gang were you most like growing up? Drop it in the comments. Number 5. There's a real reason every single villain is always a person in a costume. In 1968, parent-run organizations, most notably Action for Children's Television, began loudly protesting what they considered excessive violence in Saturday morning cartoons. CBS, under direct pressure from these watchdog groups, instructed producers to remove anything that could be considered genuinely frightening or harmful for young viewers. The creative team's response was to make every single supernatural threat in the show a real person in a disguise, caught and unmasked by the end of every episode. The defining formula of Scooby-Doo, every monster is always human, wasn't a creative choice. It was a network compliance decision made under pressure from parent groups. Number 4. Fred Jones was named after a real CBS executive. After the network rejected Who's SS Scared, Silverman requested the show be made more comedic, and the rock band element dropped entirely. During this revision process, the character called Ronnie, himself a merger of the original characters Jeff and Mike, was renamed Fred. He was renamed after Fred Silverman himself, the CBS executive, whose insistence on changes had shaped nearly every major creative decision in the show's entire development. The square-jawed leader of Mystery Inc., the one who always sets the trap, is named after the network executive who kept rejecting the show until it was good enough to air. Number 3. There is a famous urban legend about this show. It is completely false. A widely repeated claim holds that the 4 teenage characters in Scooby-Doo were each designed to represent students from specific prestigious East Coast universities. Fred from Yale, Daphne from one school, Velma from another. This story has circulated online and in pop culture discussions for years. Multiple sources, including the show's own research documentation and direct statements from its creators, confirm it is entirely false. Every character was modeled on a Dobie Gillis cast member. No Ivy League institution was ever part of the design process. The university theory was invented entirely by the internet. Number 2. The designer was taught exactly what a perfect Great Dane looks like, then did the opposite. Character designer Iwao Takamoto, a former Disney animator who had created Astro from the Jetsons, was assigned to design the show's dog. He consulted a colleague at the studio who bred prize-winning Great Danes and spent a full hour learning every characteristic of the ideal specimen: strong straight back, powerful chin, straight hind legs. Then he took his notes and deliberately reversed every single one. He sloped the back, he underswung the chin, he bowed the legs, he added a double chin. In Takamoto's own words, "I selected about 5 things and went in the opposite direction." The most recognized cartoon dog in American history was designed by a man who was given a master class in the breed and chose to ignore everything he had just learned. Number 1. The name Scooby-Doo has 2 origin stories, and one of them quietly kills the other. The story told publicly for decades is that Fred Silverman named the dog Scooby-Doo on a plane flight while listening to Frank Sinatra sing Strangers in the Night, specifically the famous scat ending, Scooby-Dooby-Doo. Silverman reportedly scribbled the name on a cocktail napkin mid-flight. Ruby and Spears confirmed this story in interviews, and it became the official origin of one of the most recognizable names in television history. But Iwao Takamoto, in his own memoir, My Life with 1,000 Characters, revealed something that complicates the entire story. He had seen a character in the Hanna-Barbera archives, predating this show's development entirely, that was already called Scooby. A different character, a different show, never produced. Sitting in a filing cabinet since the early 1960s. 2 separate origin stories for the same name. One involves Frank Sinatra on a plane. The other involves an unnamed archived character from a decade earlier that nobody ever made. Both have been confirmed by people directly involved in the show's creation. Neither fully explains the other. The name Scooby-Doo might have come from a cocktail napkin at 30,000 feet. It might have come from a forgotten filing cabinet. It might have come from both at exactly the same time. That is Scooby-Doo, where are you? The echo fades. Tell us in the comments which facts surprised you most, and we'll see you in the next one.